You're listening to Your Financial Identity with your host, Renee Hansen, where we explore relationships with money. We're talking about how our money stories, values, knowledge, skill set, and experiences develop financial identity, bringing awareness to financial behavior. In today's episode, we are talking to Natalie, who just finished reading Finding Your Financial Identity, and it changed her life. We will hear her money story and learn about her values and how she is changing how she makes decisions. You can get Finding Your Financial Identity at yourfinancialidentity.com. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Well, welcome, Natalie. We're so glad to have you on the show today. I think listeners are going to relate to you. I think they're going to relate to what's going on in your life. So we connected because you recognize that you have a money story. And that money story has been influencing your decisions for a very long time. And you're wondering, maybe it's time that you can make a change. You have all the things in place. But I'd like you to start with sharing that money story. How did you grow up?
So I grew up in a single family household. My father left when I was 3 and didn't help support us kids. I have also a brother that's 2 years older. And so that left my mother working 2.5 jobs, working paycheck to paycheck, not making ends meet. And she had to make decisions of whether to pay an electric bill or a gas bill. She was often robbing Peter to pay Paul. Um, Back then, I remember going to the bank with her one day, and this was when the ATMs, you still had the envelopes, and she would deposit an empty envelope, just so that way she can make a quote deposit, just so that way she would have money. And then by the time she got payday, that would it would all get ironed out, but that gave her like a couple days of extra pay, just so that way she can put gas in the car and food on the table. Um and that lifestyle ended up, I was anticipating that I would learn from that lifestyle and not go into it, and I ended up going into adulthood with that same mentality, that it was acceptable to be paycheck to paycheck, and that it was okay to have a lifestyle where you didn't make ends meet, or you were hoping for a windfall of extra money to come in so that way you can pay down that credit card and things like that.
2.5 jobs is a tough place to be with 2 children, for sure. It sounds like she was rather resourceful in making making the ends connect eventually, even if they didn't meet all the time. And she was a professional, so this is she had a good job, right?
Yes, she was a nurse.
Okay.
So, it was decent. It wasn't, an unreasonable job.
Right. And I suspect that it sounds like she was having to do everything on her own from your story. How old were you when you realized that she was magical in her concept of making ends meet?
I feel like I was probably 9 or 10 by the time I realized, of the strategies that she was doing to kind of connect the dots and making sure that we did have food on the table, and, that the power was on. There were some times where we didn't have hot water, but we had power. So, we just made it work.
Did you figure this out on your own, or did she share things along the way that because obviously you observed what she was doing, but how did you know that the packet was empty? When did you discover that? Did she share it with you, or did you figure it out on your own?
She shared that with me.
Okay.
Yeah. When she would put the envelope in, she was like, "This will get us by until payday." And she would make the quote deposit, and then at that time, it would credit you right away.
Right.
So then she would withdraw that cash. And
Eh,
then, when the bank called, she would just be like, "Oh, I forgot to put the check in the envelope."
Gotcha.
And then it would get all ironed out, and that was the end of it.
How did you feel then in comparison to how you feel now about it? Is it the same? Share.
No, so then I felt like it was creative of her to do things like that, and it was, um, like she was able to get something accomplished even without the resources that she needed.
Hmm.
But now looking back, I feel like I don't think there was anything that she could have done differently, in that situation. But I feel like now at this point, even versus 10 years ago, I feel like there's better choices that I could make to not be in that situation, to not ever have to be in that situation.
Did you find yourself making similar choices as you matured?
I would say in the up until 3 years ago, not necessarily making, because we were not able to do that
Right.
now, but
Right.
I would find myself trying to get creative in, hoping that I'm able to sell something to get a little windfall, or my bonus check comes in just in time to get things caught up. And then I always keep telling myself, okay, when I get this windfall, my financial situation is going to be back to zero or back to square. So that way I can stay that way. And then there would be a repair that needs to happen on the car or something of that sort, or a vet bill with the horses. And then that would snowball out of place, or even Christmas, with the kid coming up and things like that.
So, you found yourself wanting to provide a life for your child also, and you also wanted to enjoy the horses. You've completed the values quiz. Can you tell me what your top 5 values are?
Yeah, so my top 5 values, which that quiz was very hard. I had to read them over multiple times and um, kind of eliminate slowly and compare. And so my top 5 were happiness, relationships, safety, security, and stability.
Do you see a theme in your values?
Definitely.
Yeah. That safety and security and stability all come into play, which it sounds like you didn't feel that when you were younger and you're having or had a difficult time in doing the same thing. What brings you happiness, Natalie?
I would say the things that bring me happiness is the people around me being happy. And then I would say even just having stability and safety, like all of those things stem into being happy. Because if I didn't feel safe or secure, or if I was not making ends meet, then I'm not going to be happy.
And how have the horses
So
played
see,
into this happiness factor of your life and the financial decisions you've made?
so I enjoy taking them to competitions,
Hmm.
and those competitions can be quite expensive. So having the competitions, it's takes the stress off from work. It's, the little side hobby, but then I feel the enjoyment, the fulfillment of it. But then there's that financial piece that plays the stressor on it too.
Yeah. Have the horses taken away from some of your other goals?
Um, I never thought about that, actually.
Having been in the horse world with my family, sometimes we make decisions around that do pull from other goals we might have, such as vacations or retirement or home
Yeah, because that's what
repairs.
I was thinking.
Hmm.
If I wasn't spending all that money on the horse competitions early on, then I could have put more money into a retirement fund or house repairs and things like that.
And really, Natalie, when we think about this conversation, horse is a proxy for any other decisions that people are making. Because listeners are probably going to say, well, then don't ride the horses. What an easy decision that is. And that's not an easy decision. It's kind of like telling someone, then don't buy the shoes or don't
Yeah.
bet on the game or, any other
Or
sort of
even
thing.
their Starbucks habit, is kind of that same concept. Like I don't buy Starbucks every day, so that's kind of my trade-off.
And it's interesting when you talk about trade-offs, that is a common rationalization that people make as well. I don't do fill in the box. So therefore I get to do this, the Peter and Paul strategy in making decisions on where we're going to spend our money. So because it is easy for others looking in to say, well, then just do this or just don't do that. But we all have something in our life that brings us a degree of happiness or as a vice or whatever you want to call it, that we make decisions around, right?
Yeah,
That
for sure.
So it comes back into play when we begin to think about how we would think about our financial identity. We begin to think what is important to us, and we will operate within our values. And as you stated in the happiness component, it's happiness for your family and the things that you do, the stress reliever of work, and it creates a sense of stability and security of this is what your life looks like, this is how you operate. And so far, you've managed to get by, right? So now we begin to look at what would we do differently if we had choices that were easy to make. What would we do differently? And we go back to how does this situation make us feel, and what am I thinking about it? So if our vices, whatever they are, again, horse in your situation is the reality, but a proxy for many other people. If we want to continue that, can we find a balance of other things to do? And this always goes back to the 5 attributes of our financial identity, the first being our money story. And your money story, unique to you, but also similar to other people. You're not the first child to grow up in a single parent household. And your mother wasn't the first parent to have to make the decisions she did. Did she create this strategy or did she learn it from someone else? I don't think she was the only person doing this, right? Maybe that's why ATMs changed and you had to put cash in where they can count it and see it. so we can call your mother an innovator now, okay? But when we look at the money story, we go to our values and then our knowledge and skill regarding our ability to make decisions, particularly in the financial world, and then our experiences. Are they aligning with what we ultimately want to have happen, such as having a comfortable retirement, continuing to maintain horses? Have you made any decisions, or are you thinking about decisions around horses that you would change that? Are there other things that are important to you?
So I have reduced the amount of horses that I have. So now I just have a couple horses and one donkey. Um, yeah, he's a family pet. So, um, rather than having 6 horses, that gets a lot more expensive when you're adding on shoes and vet bills and vaccinations and all the other expenses that go into keeping that many horses. So I have reduced the herd so that way now the expenses are a lot less.
What was the impetus to do that? What caused you to do that?
Deciding that it was time to make better choices financially.
Was there something that happened in your life that caused you to think that?
I think it's more of just the reflection and awareness that the living to paycheck is shouldn't, it doesn't necessarily have to be that way.
Now you're speaking my language, Natalie. Reflection and awareness. It's exactly what financial identity is. As we reflect on the decisions we have made, are they the decisions we still want to continue to make? Or do we need to either stop making that decision or modify the decision? And in your situation, you modified the number of horses. Like someone would
Hmm.
modify the number of times they go to Starbucks, for example.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, what other things are important to you? Vacations or retirement? What are the things that are important to you that you want to be able to be more aware and tackle those goals along with maintaining happiness with the horses and family?
Definitely, I want to be able to establish a retirement fund. I don't have a retirement fund currently, and now being 42, I need to kind of get on board and start thinking about those things of do I want to keep working until I'm 70, 80 years old? Because if I don't have a retirement, then that's the path it's going.
Right. So 42 is not considered old. I have seen people wait until their 50s to power save into retirement. So so congratulations for recognizing earlier than some that it's time to get on board. And the earlier you start, of course, the compounding of savings and the ability to save for the future is easier. And do you work for an employer or do you work for yourself?
Work for an employer.
Okay. And do they have a savings program in place, such as a 401k or a 403b?
They actually just started this last year. I missed the deadline to enroll in it, so my plan is to enroll in it in the fall.
Okay. And when you enroll in it, how is that going to influence your decisions on your cash flow and how you spend your money?
I guess at that point, I will have to look to see what the cash flow, if I'm coming out, how much I'm coming out positive between paychecks.
Okay. One of the things that you can do in advance of waiting to see what happens is you can create the environment of what will happen. And you can do that by determining how much you feel you have left over right now. So the fall is still a couple of months away that you can begin to track your expenses. Listeners, don't groan. Natalie, don't groan. This is not a fun task, but we can backdoor it. Some things you simply can't change. Your mortgage is your mortgage, right? You have your utilities. Can you reduce the bill a little bit? Yes. Is it going to be significant enough to make a difference? No. The areas that we notice the biggest impact are the discretionary areas. It is the Starbucks, it's the horses, it's the new boots for the horses and the new outfits for your show, that sort of a thing. But it's also clothing, dining out, vacation, entertainment, gifts. Those are the discretionary items, examples of some of them that you can choose to look at and say, are these things I'm willing to give up? For everyone has their own vices, and I always say, pick one that's really important to you. Is it having your nails done every week? Is it a golf outing every week? Is it the movies? Whatever that one is, and make sure you set enough money aside to enjoy that. For people who enjoy dining out, I suggest that, and maybe you don't have the bottle of wine there. You go out and have dinner and drink water and come home and have a glass of wine together, or order in and have the wine at home so that you're not preparing the meal but you're still enjoying it. So there's ways that you can look to reduce those discretionary expenses. Make sense?
That makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So are you beginning, you don't need to share right now, but are you beginning to think of areas that you could cut, that you could look at and scrutinize a little more closely and have greater awareness?
Definitely. Even, looking at the horse competitions, um, not going to as many of them.
Okay.
There's horse competitions once a month practically, and if I go once a quarter, or even, 3 shows a year, then I can still have the fun, but then save a little too.
That sounds like an excellent strategy. So still holding to your values, but having greater awareness of how you're spending your money. So this means that you are building your skill set in managing your budget. And that's one of the attributes of financial identity. The next part will be contributing to your retirement account. Many people will start with the amount that they get a match from their employer, what we call the free money. So some employers match at 1%, 2%, 3%. So you'll need to read the document on how much, if, assuming they do, right, that they match. And that would be a very good goal to start with because it's a quick way to double your money. If someone's going to match 3% of your money, you've just doubled your money. So so that would now build your knowledge component of your financial identity. These are the things that then, as you have experiences, and you'll have experiences by enrolling into your retirement account, beginning to recognize what it feels like with a little less money coming home, reducing the number of shows that you're going to. All of these create experiences that derive a feeling or emotion around within your financial identity. Your early story shared that you were a little uncomfortable with the decisions you were making in shaping your financial identity. And now what you're doing is taking the turn to say, okay, I'm going to be intentional with my decisions and my financial identity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
How does that feel right now for you?
I'm feeling so even as things were starting to fall into place, as I was starting to sell off some of the horses, um, it was a sense of relief that there is, light at the end of the tunnel to not live paycheck to paycheck or, be so close into hoping that, something doesn't go wrong with the car or the truck, to knock it out of place.
I'm glad to hear that. And one of the things that I see people do when they save in one area, they end up spending in another area. And what you've decided to do is change so that you're going to redirect those savings into something that matches your longer term goals versus your immediate impulsive decisions for horses and the like. And one of the avenues that you've chosen is retirement. Another avenue that's worthwhile considering is a cash reserve. So a cash reserve is where you set up 3 to 6 months of your expenses so that when something does go wrong, because in your situation, it won't be just one horse gets sick, two horses will get sick, and then the cat will get sick too. Good news is it's one vet visit for two horses, but we won't go down that path. So you begin to look at having the reserves in place so that you can take care of that versus not getting behind, which is what you felt your mother was doing and what you felt you were doing early on in your financial life, which is using Peter to pay Paul or foregoing one bill for the other kind of a strategy. And this gives you then the comfort to be able to manage when you have emergencies that come in place and not having to go into credit card debt. That doesn't mean you wouldn't use a credit card to get points. Many people use that for the vacation component, and you've talked about vacations being important to you. Before we started the show, you talked about enjoying vacations, and that would allow you then to use some points for hotels or flights along the way. But you want to be able to pay that off so that you don't accrue the interest charges. And you probably know that many places, and vets included now, are charging a service fee to use credit cards. So you don't want to, if you don't have to, use that, to have to pay the 3% surcharge on top of it. We're seeing more and more of that. Yeah. What other decisions do you think you're going to be making as you move forward this year with your finances?
Let's see. So definitely, yeah, we talked about the retirement. We talked about, you know, the horses and kind of whittling down that and not going to as many competitions. Um, I do have some home repairs that need to get done, but then once I get all my budget squared away, then I was going to save for that versus putting that on a credit card. just so that way I don't rack up those
Yeah.
interest rates.
Those are repairs that you can set aside for a little bit that won't continue to get worse, it sounds like. So, a smart decision on
Yes,
that
yes.
process, building the cash. One of the things that people ask when they think about saving for retirement is how much should I save?
Hmm.
Um, and used to the rule of thumb, which doesn't mean it is the solution, but at least it's a starting point for thinking, was 10% of your salary. That has gone up to 15%. That's the new rule of thumb, that you save 15% of your income into a retirement account. There's three ways to save. We talk about asset allocation, meaning that you want to have a diversified investment portfolio so that all your eggs aren't in one basket. But there's also asset location. And so, Natalie, if you can think in your head, and listeners, if you can envision a triangle, and each corner of that triangle being a different location, we'll start with the top one, which is the tax-free triangle. It's everyone's favorite, by the way, is how can we have tax-free money? And that tax-free money is oftentimes identified as a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k. Municipal bonds also provide some tax-free income. You can also save into some cash value life insurance policies and use a strategy to take income out in the future. Those do not give you any immediate tax efficiencies, tax benefits, because it goes in after you've already paid your taxes. If we then go down to the bottom right corner of this triangle that we envision in our head, that's the tax deferred strategy. That's where most people think about IRAs and 401ks, deferred compensation types of plans through employers. That's where money goes in and you don't pay current federal or state taxes on it. And when it grows tax deferred. And then when you pull it out, you pay taxes on it at your then tax rate. The theory would be that you would be in a lower tax bracket. That isn't always the case, but it certainly is a great way to save, particularly when you're getting some match on a savings plan through your employer. This also psychologically is out of sight, out of mind. And this is an important play on our
Mm-hmm.
financial identity because we don't view it as something we can get at. It's for the future, as we say. Then
Hmm.
on the left side of that triangle, the left bottom side of the triangle, is the taxable side. This is where you might have a savings account that you earn interest and you'll report that as income every year. It might be dividends, it might be stock that you sold and you had some long-term capital gains. And those are things that you pay taxes on in the year that it is realized, in the year that you either earned the interest or you realized the gain on your holding. The three of these combined is what people use to manage their taxes in retirement, where you can take some tax-free from the top triangle. You can take some tax deferred that will be taxable to you in the bottom right. Many people view that as taking up to their standard deduction, which turns that into tax-free. And then finally, the other in long-term capital gains. Long-term capital gains are taxed at a different rate than ordinary income, 0, 15, or 20%, depending on your level of income. This can help you manage taxes. So once you begin to save into your retirement account, then the next step is, okay, am I saving in the right categories? But definitely start with your retirement account, what they give you there. Did that make sense, what I was describing?
Yes, it did. I was kind of drawing the little triangle and like I made a whole little picture just so that way I can visually see what you were talking about.
Okay. Did that create any questions? What questions do you have?
So, well, you said to start with the tax deferred, which would be the 401k through the employer. And then at what point do you get another, is it stocks then you go on or you just stick with the tax deferred?
So
Because you
that
said you kind of want a little variety.
I love the question. So we were talking about asset location, and in each of those
Hmm.
locations, you can create a diversified portfolio for asset allocation. So in your 401k, you may actually have two triangles. There may be a traditional 401k component and a Roth 401k component. Most plans do. It would be unusual if yours didn't because of the new tax code that requires people of a certain age, any of their match contributions or catch-up contributions past the limit must go into a Roth. So this would give you an opportunity potentially to save in one place and use two strategies and remain diversified. Your 401k will likely have mutual fund choices that allow you diversification of stocks and bonds. So you'll want to do a risk quiz so that you can figure out where you are, whether you're conservative or whether you're an aggressive investor, and anywhere in between. Moderate would be closer to a 50-50, 50% stocks, 50% bonds. An optimal portfolio is oftentimes viewed as more of a 60-40, 60% stocks and 40% bonds. And this allows you to then have a portfolio that's reflective of your risk tolerance. In other words, what you can stomach, the volatility of the ups and downs and movement of your investment portfolio, that you can go to sleep at night and not feel stressed. And you can do this both in the Roth component of your 401k and the traditional side. And then as you build your cash reserve in the bottom left side, using a high yield savings account, for example, then you'll have interest. So you'll have a chance to work on building all three of those within the course of the year, Natalie.
Okay, that makes sense.
Does that feel good?
Yeah, that does.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Did that create more questions?
No, I don't think that created more questions at this time.
Okay.
At least not yet.
If you, I love,
Probably once I lay in bed tonight, I'm gonna, probably think of more questions.
I actually love the term yet. In one of my trainings, it was very important is when you could say, well, I'm not ready yet. I can't do that yet. And that way we create the space to grow in our lives and achieve the things that we want to achieve. I would like to ask you, going back to how you have lived your 42 wonderful years, what would you do differently with the knowledge you have now?
I feel like I would have made better decisions in not having as many horses and going to all of the competitions and feeling like I wanted to have, I want to say a status, but making it appear that I'm more financially stable than I'm not,
Mm-hmm. We call
if that
that,
makes any
oh
sense.
yeah, yeah. We call it keeping up with the Joneses, and so often we really don't know how successful the Joneses are. Did they finance that new trailer? Did they have to finance their cars, and are they just having more expensive cars and still not saving for their retirement? You're not alone, by the way, in not saving for retirement. This is not an uncommon theme. So the idea of how do I fit in comparison with the Joneses is part of what financial identity is. So on our website, financialidentity.com, you can see that there is a financial identity quiz on where you fall within your identity. And then it allows you to begin to think, what can I do differently to build my identity and build greater comfort and confidence in the decisions I'm making? That's why I created financial identity, is because people don't know where they fall within the spectrum of their neighbors. When you're at a horse show, you certainly see the nicer horses. You know that they've paid. Sometimes they have a top trainer, that sort of a thing. So you know they're spending some money on it, but you don't know what they're sacrificing either. It's just different
Very true.
sacrifices on that.
Mm-hmm.
So if people can begin to think about their own financial identity and how they can improve each aspect or attribute of the components of financial identity, it will build a greater degree of comfort and confidence for you, where you can align your values, your goals, and your risk tolerance within the framework of your financial identity to make better decisions. And as you make better decisions, you create better experiences, which continues to build the comfort and confidence of the future decision you're going to make, because you will remain aware of where you are, the things that you've sacrificed before, and the decisions you don't want to make again, and you'll continue to build on those good decisions. So.
Mhm.
Natalie, I want to thank you for joining us today. Your story is going to resonate with many people, and allowing me to talk about things that I'm hopeful will help you make better decisions over the coming year. I look forward to hearing from you in a year of the successes that you've had, and how listeners will apply what you've learned to their own lives and the successes they're going to feel in the course of a year. Thank you, Natalie.
Absolutely. Thank you for the invite. It was very insightful, um, to kind of reflect of where I've been, where I'm at now, and the future in the next 10, 20 years, where I'm going to be financially. So, yeah, I'm excited to share with you in the coming months to year of how things are going.
Well, cheers to your successes, Natalie.
Thank you.
We've had a good time today, and we hope you have too. If you have enjoyed this discussion, please rate or review us on Apple Podcast and like or subscribe on YouTube. And if you'd like to be a guest, please reach out to us at yourfinancialidentity.com.